and welcome to a new video. I am so excited to be back here with a new video that is specific to piriformis syndrome. Walking is my favorite way of doing cardio, so I thought why not come here and share more about exercises specific to piriformis syndrome, more specifically the exercises that just didn't work for me and that actually would be even worse and they would trigger pain and flare-ups for me. So I have made several videos about how to heal piriformis syndrome. So I will link to those below. I don't want to just repeat that material, but today I want to focus more on things to avoid doing because so many things that I did, I feel like contributed to my setbacks and contributed to why my recovery lasted so many years. Like just trying to get better lasted 7 years. I spent 7 years just kind of repeating certain things. They contributed to my flare-ups and just having so many setbacks. I had to make so many modifications, change things in terms of how I do these specific exercises. And the crazy thing is that a lot of these exercises were actually given to me by therapists. So I was extremely confused when they didn't work or they would make my pain worse. And I want to share some tips on how to actually use these exercises but get the most out of them. So the first exercise is actually the clamshell, and you may be surprised because the clamshell is usually given specifically for piriformis pain. The clamshell is a fantastic exercise to activate the glute med and to stabilize and straighten the pelvis, and I still use it. But unfortunately that motion, it would always irritate the piriformis more, and there are a few reasons why that could be happening. And the first one is that when the muscle is already spasming, when we're adding more tension on it, it will just irritate it even more. And a lot of times, like because of the pain, there could be compensation happening, so the glute med is not able to activate right away properly, so the piriformis is kicking in again, making spasming even more, again more tension on the muscle which is already being inflamed, and we add that tension on top, so we can just make the flare-up worse. And I have experienced this so many times. And how do you do the exercise without triggering pain? And I have some notes here that I want to share with you that allowed me to be able to do this exercise and benefit from it. First thing is keep the band really light, maybe even start to do the exercise completely body weight, and use very, very light, one light band. So just don't try to do it perfectly and do 12 to 15 reps with medium band right away, especially if you are in pain. Keep the reps really low, so start between 5 reps, really that low, and monitor how you're feeling. The third thing is you want to do very small movements, so nothing too big. You want to focus on that contraction, but really small movements, so you don't want to open up your hips or you don't want to open up your legs too much. And also the last thing, I like to use a wall behind me just as a point of reference, because I do find a lot of people, they start to kind of rock back and forth to try to make the movement big, like to try to open up their legs more, so they kind of keep going back and forth. So make sure that you have a wall behind you, you're feeling, you know, so that it can just help you. If you're starting to kind of go back and forth, you can feel yourself getting away from the wall. The second exercise that would irritate the piriformis, that's kind of similar to this one, is this side lying leg lifts. And again, a fantastic glute med activation exercise that can make the pain worse if you're going through a piriformis flare-up. So I would be very careful with this one. You can just be asking too much of the glute med specifically for this exercise when we are going through the pain, because you're trying to lift your whole leg up, and a lot of times our hips, our joint is inflamed, the glute med is weak, and we just end up compensating again. What I like to do instead is I like to do the wall slides, which is very similar, but instead you're using the wall for support. You're kind of leaning against the wall and you're lifting your leg up all the way against the wall, but as high as you can comfortably lift. We're not focusing too much on the height, but just on kind of activating that glute med, and then on the way down, you slow down on the way down. So focusing on that activation, isolation versus lifting the leg high up and using the wall for support. So the wall is literally kind of bearing a little bit of the weight, which will take the load off of the hip joint to get your leg up, and then the movement, the eccentric movement slowing down is what's going to activate that glute med. So we're just kind of playing around with the exercise to still get the glute med to activate, but taking the load off the joint. The third activity that I stayed away from after a couple times trying it is biking, cycling, either using your bike or a stationary bike. There are a few things why. The first thing is that when we're biking, we're using our hip flexors as the main muscles. If there's already like an imbalance in there and the hip flexors, the psoas is already overactive, very tight, and we're going to just work that muscle, without any release, without any balance, by strengthening the glutes, we can make the pain worse. And the other thing is that if we're using a bike without any support, any back supports, pelvic support, then we are going to round the lumbar spine. So just this combination of lack of lumbar support, lack of pelvic support, over tight hip flexors, especially if you don't spend some time in the beginning activating the glutes, which I found to be helpful. But overall, I didn't really find it to be worth it. Like, I could totally do my cardio just going for walks in places like here, just something really low impact. I didn't feel like it was contributing to much besides just making my pain worse. So again, this was kind of really confusing because I would go to the physio and they would put me on a stationary bike to warm up. So it did feel like it was just confusing. But again, this whole healing journey has taught me so much about listening to my body. And even though we can go to a therapist, but at the end of the day, we're the only ones who can feel the pain. We're the only ones who can feel what's going on. So we can tell them and report to them about what's happening instead of just kind of doing what they tell us. I honestly feel like professionals would appreciate that if you can give them feedback if something isn't working instead of just doing what they tell you. The last thing I want to mention, and it is one of the things that would always cause me the worst flare-up, and it's because I was so attached to this form of exercise, and that was doing plyometrics in form of high-intensity interval training. I would do a lot of jumping and like jumping jacks, jumping lunges, jumping squats, drills, like any type of high-intensity exercise where there is jumping in particular, or running, like short bursts of running, like sprinting. All of those things, they would trigger the worst flare-ups ever, and they, not like the next day, it would be right away. I would feel the pain right away. It's just like my hips they couldn't take it, and unfortunately what would happen is that I would get better, and then I would feel better, and I'm like, oh, let's go do a workout, and I will go back and do the exact same thing and trigger a really bad flare-up, and then again, it would take me weeks to get better. So I would highly recommend for you to switch to a lower impact form of exercise. I feel like if anything, this had made a huge impact on me. And I have to say that it was hard. I love just, like as a coach and trainer, like I love just pushing myself and doing really hard workouts, but I had to really learn to kind of slow down and focus more on weight training, strength training, and do lower impact exercises, because at the end of the day, like, I wanted to be pain-free and I wanted a sustainable way of living. Why would I put myself through such hard workouts if at the end of it I'm just going to be in pain? So it didn't make sense anymore. And now I feel that my workouts are much better. Sometimes what I do is that I would do high intensity of low impact exercises. So basically I would have a link here to an example of that. So instead of doing mountain climbers or jumping lunges, I would do sliders to kind of make it low impact, but it's still super challenging. So there's definitely ways that you can challenge your body and still get results without pushing yourself beyond your limits. And side note, huge missed on this side. I wanted to make just a very quick final note, which is foam rolling. Make sure for piriformis pain specifically that you're not foam rolling directly on the piriformis, but I would use a massage ball instead. I feel like the massage ball works better because you can control the pressure. But when you're sitting on the foam roller, I found that I couldn't really control the pressure that much, and it would just irritate the muscle more. So I would highly recommend that you switch to using the massage ball instead. And then the last thing also, overstretching. I do have a very detailed blog post about yoga poses that made my pain worse and that you should avoid. Make sure to check it out. It's a very important post. So these are the tips that I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to comment below. I will definitely dive more into these topics with you. And if you want to learn about everything that's helped me recover from piriformis syndrome and all of the exercises that I do on a daily basis to maintain this pain-free state, check out my program, Piriformis Control, that's helped hundreds of people from all over the world get better as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. Before that, I just want to share with you this beautiful spot here where I come for my walks, and this is where I do my cardio. My cardio is always my daily walks at beautiful parks like these in British Columbia.